Those gable vents on the ends of your attic, whether they're triangular, round, octagonal, or something else, they might actually be hurting your ventilation instead of helping it. I've crawled through many attics over the last 20 years, and I see this exact setup constantly. And here's the thing, it's not because gable vents are bad, it's because of what they're paired with. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you why that ventilation fight is happening inside your attic, how to spot it for yourself, and exactly what to do about it. Whether that means keeping those gable vents or sealing them off for good. A gable vent is simply an opening in the gable end of your house, usually near the peak of the roof. They're typically louvered and screened. Back in the 1800s and early 1900s, houses were built a lot differently than they are today. They were drafty, they weren't usually insulated much, and they naturally moved a lot of air. Some homes had cupolas, roof vents, or other ways for heat to escape. And because those houses leaked air everywhere, the attics tended to dry out on their own. Then as homes became more modern and the architecture changed, gable vents became the go-to solution. They were inexpensive and easy to frame, and for the houses being built at the time, they did an okay job, but houses kept changing. We started insulating attics, air sealing homes, and making them much tighter. That's when we began to realize there was a better way. Instead of relying mostly on wind blowing through the gable vents, building science showed us that a balanced system, with fresh air coming in low through the soffits and warm air exhausting high through the ridge vent, provides much more consistent ventilation for modern homes. Now, to understand why, you've got to understand what a properly vented attic actually means. It needs three things. It needs an air inlet, usually the soffits under the eaves, an air outlet, usually the ridge vent running the length of the roof, and you need to allow the air to move from one to the other. That third one, that's where gable vents may create the problem. The best driving force in your attic is the stack effect. Warm air rises, it's less dense, so it wants to exit high and pull cool air from below. In most modern homes, your attic works just like a chimney. Cool air in the bottom, warm air out the top, no electricity required. Gable vents don't benefit from the stack effect nearly as well, because they're not located at the highest point in the attic. They're on the sides. So what actually moves air through a gable vent most of the time is wind. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my attic depending on whether it's breezy outside. I've measured attics at over 140 degrees on a dead calm afternoon, where the gable vents were wide open and doing absolutely nothing. Now here's the part that most homeowners have never had explained to them. If your attic has gable vents and a ridge vent, they can actually fight against each other. Think of it like putting two straws in the same drink. One of them is stealing from the other. Wind blowing a certain direction, especially straight across the ridge line, can pull air backward through part of your system. Air that's supposed to be leaving through the ridge vent gets pulled in through a gable vent instead, shoots straight across, and exits out the other side without ever touching the corners of your attic. Building scientists call this short-circuiting. I just call it wasted ventilation. I remember crawling into an attic where the homeowner just couldn't understand why his ridge vent wasn't helping at all. About 10 seconds after I got up there, I found the problem. Every soffit vent was buried under blown-in insulation. No baffles were installed, so the insulation had slid right down and choked off the intake completely. That ridge vent had nothing to pull from down low, so it was pulling air sideways from the gable vent instead, and short-circuiting the whole system before it ever had a chance to get started. So are gable vents just bad? Not exactly. For older homes that never had a ridge vent and can't easily add one, gable vents might be the only exhaust option they've got. In that case, they're better than nothing. But if I'm standing in your attic giving you my honest opinion, I'm still going to push for real soffit intake and a proper ridge vent, or a well-placed power vent if the roof won't allow for the ridge vent. Balanced soffit to ridge ventilation almost always beats gable vents relying on wind alone. Now let's talk powered gable fans, because I bet a lot of you watching this have that exact setup. One fan blowing in, one fan blowing out. Here's what actually goes wrong with these. Those motors usually burn up from running constantly trying to fight the wrong pressure. Plus, birds build nests right in the housing and block airflow completely. The screens get clogged with dirt and debris until they're barely breathing. Louvers get stuck shut from age or paint or rust. And when you got two fans, one on each gable end, they can literally overpower each other. One pulling air while the other's trying to push air out the same space. And neither usually wins. Now some of you are probably thinking, I only have one powered gable fan. It blows air out, and the other gable vent allows fresh air to come in. What's wrong with that? The problem is that the fan is going to pull air from wherever it's easier to get it from. If your attic has soffit vents and a ridge vent, you've now created competing airflow paths. Instead of drawing cooler outside air evenly through the soffits and up the underside of the roof deck, the fan may be pulling a lot of its replacement air straight across the attic from the opposite gable vent or from the nearest available opening. That means large sections of the roof deck may see very little airflow at all. The air takes the path of least resistance, not necessarily the path that gives you the best ventilation. The goal isn't just to move air, it's to move air where you want it to go, starting at the soffits, traveling up the underside of the roof deck, and leaving through the highest point in the attic. Think about trying to cool your house by putting a box fan in one window. The room right in front of the fan gets plenty of air, but that doesn't mean that every room in the house is getting good circulation. Attics work in the same way. You don't just want air moving. You want it moving through the entire attic, from the soffit all the way to the highest point of the roof. That's what a balanced ventilation system is designed to do. Now let's talk about gable vents and moisture, because this is where it actually gets serious. Older homes leaked air everywhere and had no insulation, as I mentioned before. So the attic stayed close to the temperature to the room below it. Anything that got damp dried out pretty fast. Once we started insulating attics to today's standards, that attic temperature became closer to the outside conditions than to your living space. In the winter, moisture leaking up through your can lights, plumbing penetrations, the attic hatch, now condenses on that cold roof deck instead of drying out, because gable vent airflow alone usually isn't consistent enough to carry it away. And if your HVAC ducts run through the attic, which a lot of homes have, now you've got humid air sitting around cold metal ductwork. That's usually when I find mold growing on the ceiling near uninsulated HVAC boots. The energy penalty alone from leaking ducts in a hot attic can run as high as 25%. So should you cover up those gable vents? Depends on what you're replacing it with. If you're adding a proper ridge vent and opening up continuous soffit intake, in most cases I recommend you just completely close them off. You don't have to rip them out. Just seal them from the inside with rigid foam board and spray foam. By the way, this is the type of thing we break down every week, so if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time. Okay, let's cover some quick myth busting. I've got 4 to cover real fast. Myth number 1, more vents always means better ventilation. That's false. More vents doesn't automatically mean more airflow. Mixing gable and ridge vents together can short circuit your system and actually make things worse. Myth number 2, gable vents make your attic cooler. Not really. They can help move some hot air out when the wind cooperates, but your attic will always run warmer than the outside. That's just physics. Myth number 3, if you've got gable vents, you don't need soffit vents. That's false, and this one can cause some real damage. Remember, gable vents with no intake down low are relying completely on wind. That's not a plan, that's hope. Myth number 4, sealing off gable vents will cause moisture problems. That could be true if you don't replace that airflow with a proper ridge and soffit system. Do it right and you're better off, not worse. Before you blame your gable vents for a hot, sticky attic, check a few things first. Make sure your soffits aren't buried under the insulation, because I see that all the time. Check for missing baffles. Here's a good way to do that. If you can safely get into your attic on a sunny day and you don't see daylight coming through your soffit area, that's a clue that something may be blocked. Also check your ductwork for leaks, and check to make sure that your attic floor is air sealed, because more often than not, you are losing lots of conditioned air to your attic, and it's costing you hundreds of dollars in lost energy every year. What I always recommend is you seal first, get that attic floor sealed. Top plates, can lights, plumbing penetrations, the hatch, all of it. Then look at ventilation. Soffit intake, baffles, and a ridge vent or a power vent if your roof calls for it. Then get that insulation up to the right level for your climate. Remember, gable vents can help in the right situation, but they were never meant to run the whole show. If you want to walk through your own attic and check every single one of these things for yourself, I put together a free resource called the Attic Air Seal and Insulate Guide. It walks you through the exact process I just covered, step by step, and the link is in the description. Also, make sure you check out the video on the screen to learn more about proper ventilation. I'm Michael Church with Crawl Space Ninja, and I hope you make it a happy and blessed day, and we'll see you later.